is as everyone's joining in, I encourage you to warm up your fingers. Let's get the chat room going because it's all about the mastermind we've got, not just about me and Dwayne. And, I'm curious, what is something that you're grateful for? Maybe something small, maybe something silly. Sometimes, now I've got a morning gratitude ritual, but sometimes it's just feeling grateful for a great cup of coffee. That's about as much as I can muster. Sometimes it's waking up and looking at my calendar and realizing I have no meetings. Isn't that an awesome feeling? I'm grateful for that. Lisa says fall weather. Sheila's apologizing for camera off. That's all right, Sheila. Malcolm, 80 degrees weather in November. Yeah, Houston. Malcolm, I think I've got 75 degrees. I'm in Philadelphia. This is a little crazy. Holy smokes, Brandy. Glad you don't have cancer, and I wouldn't say that's such a small thing. I think we can all be grateful for that. And our own Evan Watkins is grateful that Kevin Thomas moved to San Diego. I'm jealous of you guys being out in Southern California, where I grew up. And Denver's getting all of our November snow, Jessica. That's funny. I want to welcome everyone as people are joining. Please weigh in. What's something that you're grateful for? I think we all get a little energy hearing about others. Michaela, Sam's Club, I love it. Sunshine, Michael, I agree with all of those things. And I want to let people know that throughout, this is a community of practice for all of us. So we create this container, this hour a month, to do some updates, to chat with an expert. And of course, we're going to want all of you to get a chance to connect with each other. But please feel free to add questions and comments throughout in the chat. Feel free to raise your hand if you want to come on mic. And let me do a quick agenda review before we dive in. So again, for those of you who don't know me, if this is your first time, I'm Kevin Kruse. I'm the founder and CEO of HealthEdge. And today we are blessed. We've got an old friend. I've interviewed her twice. We focused on her twice, Wendi Ellis, talking about leadership development at HealthEdge. We'd like all of you to make new friends for 10 or 15 minutes in a breakout. And hey, Dwayne and Evan, I invented a new segment for us this month. You know, I like to experiment. I was in the gym. I was watching the TVs were on, and ESPN Sports Center had their top 10 plays of the day. And I'm like, we need like the top 5 stories of the month. So we're going to try that for those of you who can hang out to the end. Friendly reminder that we send out an email to all of you next week with notes and links to the show. And what we want to do is just spark the next 100 million leaders around the world. That is a big number. So we're doing it with you. We're doing it through you. And we're grateful for all that you do. Today, I have, as usual, my handsome, devilishly charming co-host, the Dwayne Bess, Director of Sales Training from HealthEdge. Dwayne, how you doing?
I'm doing good, my friend. Doing great.
We had some mood music this week, experience, piano. And I don't know anything about music, but any piano players out there? Because apparently Ludovico Einaudi is quite popular. In fact, he's so popular, some people think he's like not a real musician. It's like like elevator-y or something. But I like it. I think it's good meditation music, good mood music. I had a new fitness coach, Dwayne, that lasted all of 2 calls, and then I fired her, but she recommended this song. So at least I got that for my money.
Well, you know what? People are in our lives for certain seasons, and that was her season for you.
I'm not even making this up. I found her on Instagram. I always have health coaches, and she's ripped and she's mean. And I'm like, I need someone ripped and mean to hold me accountable. And it just didn't work out. Like after 1 week, 2 sessions, it was like 2 weeks, 2 sessions. I'm like, keep the money. I'm good. I'll go find a new coach.
That reminds me, I want to go back in time really quick because I don't think any of us, we were all aware last year that you did something, but you didn't tell us how it ended. Last year, you joined this group of just like men who drank motor oil. You pulled hair off your chest, and it was all about being like hardcore.
They were called superhuman fathers, they were called.
Yeah. What was the conclusion of that?
So, Dwayne, you have good memory. You like to embarrass me. Basically, it was like a toxic masculinity group. I didn't know it when I joined it, you know,
Okay.
a bunch of firefighters and Navy SEALs who were all talking about how like you just need to suffer. And if you're not suffering hard enough, you got to find a way to suffer some more. And actually, Dwayne, I got to say, like some of their message was pretty powerful in
Okay.
that like we grow right through the challenges, the hard times. Dwayne, I don't know if people know that you're a power lifter. You spend a lot of time in the gym. And does it ever get easier? No, you just add more plates on the bar, right?
That's right.
That's the way it's
That's
supposed to
right.
be. So it lasted. I did 12 weeks with them. Hey, I lost over 20 pounds when I was with them, but then it got to be, I think, an unhealthy things they were asking me to do. So I'm like,
So was it
thank you
20
for that
pounds
season.
because of the mindset or the stress you were under from listening to them?
I found them entertaining, actually.
Okay.
I like, different perspectives. It obviously wasn't my normal crowd. I'm a pretty
Yeah.
meek, mild dude.
Yeah.
So I thought it was interesting. They were very, very welcoming. Very
Nice.
welcoming.
Thought I'd check in on you. Thought I'd check in
Yeah.
on you.
Dwayne's, how's your stuff going on? You still rolling? You still reffing? What are you doing?
Yeah, yeah. Still refereeing, got some big fights coming up. I'm in the last 3 months of the year, I do this little thing. Actually, you were part of it, where I do a group of people where we do the um, kind of like a Monday morning mindset type of Monday mindset thing where we read something based off of faith and stoicism. And then this month, I'm in my calendar blocking, and I do this thing called this Brandon Bouchard performance planner.
Yeah, yeah.
Absolutely, I love that thing. So I always do that in November to really calibrate my December
Yep.
going in. So doing that, and the next month is all about December's all about meditation. So I'm in my 3 month phase to go into
Love it.
25, if you will.
No, I love all that. That's a great practice. I didn't know you were into Burchard stuff too. I went to
Oh, yeah.
one of his live events in California years ago. Thought it was good. There it
His
is.
his
There it
his
is.
performance planner is awesome.
Yeah, good performance planner. He's been around a while. Great for personal development. And didn't know you were doing the meditation stuff as well. That's awesome.
Yes, sir. And I'm doing a little of this too.
Nice,
I
nice.
used your trick, the self-awareness strategies
There.
on the journal, and I got that going on from Mr. Evan Watkins and Kevin Kruse. Just saying, just saying.
I appreciate that, Dwayne. The funny thing is, I right before we went live here, I'm looking around. I'm like, I don't have a copy of our new emotional intelligence book. Like, I can't even like wave it around or anything. So I'm glad you did that for me.
Yeah,
We're excited for that.
yeah,
So we're
for sure.
excited for that. You got to still put a picture up on LinkedIn with you holding it with your nice smiling face.
I got you. Coming to you on Monday. It'll be Monday
Awesome.
mindset. I'll give you the Vanna White.
Oh, I love it. I love it. All right, so Dwayne, we are going to roll in because I'm excited. This is, our 1 hour program this month, and Wendy's going to drop bombs on us in a lot of different angles. But before we go to Wendy, I of course have the housekeeping stuff to take care of, and so friendly reminder. I think people forget leadx.org/vault. This is built just for the community of practice members. There's the password to get in, and it's filled with free downloads. Everything from competency playbooks that you can use to create your own, to our coaching playbooks as PDFs, sample materials from a variety of our expert presenters. So don't forget that you all have free access to the vault. And then one more free thing. We, of course, have been promoting pretty hard the new LeadX Emotional Intelligence Habits Workshop and Certification Program. Now, we offered free sessions for all of you and your trainers for the participants section. We just did the first one in October. We booked up November, and this is the one we announced on Friday. This program is now the only EQ program that Dr. Travis Bradbury is recommending. It's because of every participant gets 12 weeks of executive coaching through the app. It's the only program that lets you do unlimited retests so you can track progress over time. And it's incorporating Travis's latest research and newest assessment. So we're excited about that. And this is what many of you said. If anybody attended the October session, just put a comment in the chat that you attended the free October session. We're getting good reviews. We took some feedback from that first pilot session. we cranked it up from a 10 to an 11. And now we're going to unveil another free session in December. So the way it works, it's virtual. So 6 total hours. And this one's going to be, we had to cram it into the early part of December because of the holidays and everything. So 2 sessions on December 3rd, another session on the 4th. And then it's a complete, you get to experience the complete EQ workshop, get yourself a little digital badge, and then you'll decide if you want to go on and become certified next year or not. It's another thing we want to offer free to the community. And the great Evan Watkins just dropped a link to the sign-up form in the chat. So on that note, let us get to the main event. Let us get to the star of this hour of power. It's been a while since she and I connected, so I'm very excited to catch up. I interviewed her not once, but twice. Originally, I think it was back in 2022 for our Culture Code podcast. Search Culture Code on Spotify if you want to check out the podcast. And then more recently, she volunteered to kind of let us peek under the hood of their Emerging Leader program. We wrote that up for Forbes. She is the Vice President of Talent and Learning at HealthEdge, Wendi Ellis. Wendi, welcome.
Hi, it's great to be here.
So other than the professional stuff, going back and forth in the articles, it's been a while. I think this is the first time you've come and presented to this group, right?
It is. It is the first time. Happy to be here, though.
Wendi, we're just one big happy family, or something like that. I don't know how many families are really, like that, but we like to think of ourselves like that. So let's just first start. And everybody knows I'm from Philadelphia. Where's home for you? Where are you coming from today?
Well, I know that my accent doesn't give me away, but I live in Nashville.
You live in Nashville.
I do.
How long have you been there now?
So my whole life, basically. I mean,
Okay.
I've lived in other places. I tried New York City for a little while. I've lived in California. So, but Nashville and Tennessee has always been home.
Yeah, Wendi, it's amazing because it seems, well, you've seen the change in Nashville then. And it seems like the last 20 years, all the cool kids I know, all my writer friends, artist friends, musician friends, entrepreneur friends, they're all going to Nashville. For a while it was Austin. Now I'm here in Nashville. So
yeah, it's a great place to be.
Now tell everybody about HealthEdge. How big's the company? What do you guys do?
Yeah, so we have about 1,600 employees. We have offices in the U.S. in Boston area, as well as in Alexandria and Virginia. And then we also have our India locations, Hyderabad, Pune, and Bangalore. And so we're an integrated software platform provider when you think about payers. So if you want to know all the details of how your insurance claims get processed the right way, that's what we do. So we're behind the scenes making sure that that happens for the payer and the providers and ultimately the patient. And then we also have a clinical solution for care managers to help some of our most vulnerable populations to make sure that they are adhering to their care management plans and keeping them out of the hospitals.
Yeah, that's important work. And I mean, 1,600 employees. So you probably have 200 or 300 managers, people managers. Is that about right?
Yes, it's a little over 200 managers. Mm-hmm.
And global. So you've got that challenge as well.
Mm-hmm. Yes, definitely. Very different time zones, very different needs from people leadership capabilities. But we have a mantra. We think global and act local.
Love it. Love it. So the 2 big themes that we've come to you with, Wendi, is, this culture of continuous learning, and then more recently about Emerging Leader Program. Mm-hmm. And I want to go back to that culture of continuous learning. And this is kind of going to be fun for me because usually I'm interviewing people when they just finished their first pilot program and it's all rosy, right? Everything's all great. There's no hindsight. It's oh, okay, a year or 2 later. And so now I get you on the hot seat where I get to kind of ask some follow-up questions.
Yeah.
So when I went back and looked at our notes, you talked about, and I'm just jumping around on this, but one of the key things in 2022 you said was how do employees create connection in a remote environment, right? So everyone went remote, and it was very hot topic was how do we foster culture with remote workforce? How do we foster connection? It was certainly on your mind. Are you, have you guys come, back to office, hybrid? Where are you guys at on that issue today? And what are some secrets for keeping that connection going?
So we are a remote first environment. So that we have very few people that go into the office on a regular basis, except in some of our India locations. They have, it's not mandated, but recommended like 3 days a week. And we just opened a brand new beautiful office in Bangalore this week, actually.
Oh, wow.
But one of the things that we do is we have collaboration weeks once a month in every office. And so there's activities that are planned there, and teams can come and meet. We had one of our collab weeks at the end of September. The people team came in, and we did, we had a meeting, and so it was great to connect that way. But in terms of, it's when you read the statistics about like the manager impact on employees, like, 69% of people say their manager has an impact on their mental health, and that's equivalent to their partners.
Oh,
And
yeah.
you think about how do you balance that personal connection along with like performance management. It is difficult to do. So we have worked to give our managers frameworks and recommendations around how to give feedback. Turning feedback is not should not be like a conflict or a fearful conversation, but it should be something that you want to do to help your employees grow. And then also, thinking about effective one-on-ones and cameras on or cameras off, and thinking about the different generations and how that they like to connect with their managers. So we give resources to them so that they can skill up in those areas and stay connected. And then again, with our leadership team, and how do they have town halls, or how do they communicate out, because we have different business units. So there's a variety of ways to stay connected, but it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work on managers, and they have to be purposeful in how they connect with their team members, whether it's weekly team meetings or one-on-ones. And I just, in a remote environment, it has a lot of privileges, but it also has a lot of extras.
Yeah, and I took a note, the idea of having like a collaboration week each month, I think is a great idea, because what I'm hearing from many of you on this call, as a matter of fact, won't call you out, is as sort of return to work or 3 days a week, 2 days a week, if it's not intentional, if there's not really a reason to go in, you end up sitting alone in your cube, Zooming with someone else who's on the other side of the building in their cube. And what's the point, right? So to create meaningful interactions, meaningful time to come into the office seems to make a lot of sense.
Yeah, it does. And we have our comms team who helps plan a lot of that, along with our local administrative staff. And, whether it's a happy hour or if we're celebrating a specific holiday that comes up that week, we'll have events that connect to those cultural things that are super important to us as an organization.
When we were talking a couple of years ago about this culture of continuous learning, I want to just start by, like, what does that mean to you? Like, how do you see it or know that you've actually achieved this culture of continuous learning at HealthEdge? Like, what are you looking for?
Well, I think it's a couple of things, and that are important, and it's obviously opportunity to access learning, and is there investment by the organization into learning. And there absolutely is. I think when we talked before, we talked about how involved our executive team is in
From the
changing.
CEO on
Yes.
down, right?
Yes, our CEO still recommends books. He is a speaker at our graduations for our emerging leaders programs. And he comes and he talks about the importance of continuing to learn as leaders and investing in yourself. And so when you have that visible support there, it helps. It helps with our learning programs. I mean, we have several hundred employees apply to our learning programs.
Wow.
So we know that there's support there, because, to be able to invest that time in yourself, and knowing that your manager supports you to do that. We know that we have continuous learning, and also our engagement survey shows that our managers are invested in people's development, and our managers even have a competency that's rated on in their annual performance review around talent development. So we all of those things are connected. There's common threads there that help us to support that continuous learning culture.
Yeah, it's incredible. And that CEO on down is important. I was speaking to somebody just recently. Again, I don't want to, well, it was the old legacy GE where this person had worked in Crotonville. So Crotonville was the legendary, like the physical place you would go, was almost like their college campus. And he said, I asked about like what was the impact when they shut that down. And Pfizer had Arrowhead, it was the age of these big physical learning centers. And almost everybody's gotten rid of them. And he said, well, from a financial standpoint, sure, it makes sense. You can't justify having basically a hotel that's usually empty, as part of your organization. So financially, get it. But the change in culture, he said, if you were being sent or if you were invited to go to Crotonville and you didn't show up, you didn't pay attention, you didn't stay, I mean, it was like a black mark. Like your boss would be embarrassed that they sent you to this premier place and you didn't take it seriously. How many people feel the same way about showing up to a Zoom call, right? There was some reverence about going to the church of development, the place of worship of development. And so in a remote world, it's even harder. But if the CEO is making book recommendations, if the manager is saying, hey, I care about your development, partly because it's part of my competency, that's going to be how we have to rebuild it. Without that, like I really do worry. I mean, it's just not the same anymore. It's just not the same. I'd be curious in the comments if anyone else is seeing ways to kind of increase this culture of learning other than just CEO support. And I'm going to mess up my Zoom thing if I change my slides. So I'm not going to be able to do that, unfortunately. So Wendi, let me ask a last question about the 2022 stuff. You had made a change where, like, we heard Dwayne talking about, he's getting ready. He's all set to get his next year goals in place, right? Getting ready for January. And you had sort of mandated that everybody create goals for the following year. Now, how'd that turn out? Are you still asking people to do that?
Yes, and I'm so glad that you asked this question because it's been interesting how this has evolved. So we had everybody put in a professional development goal, at least one. We just mandated one, and people put in more. They put in different goals, but one professional development because we wanted to give permission to people to invest in themselves. We made that goal in our mid-years, which we call our mid-year check-ins, part of that conversation.
Love it.
So, how are you tracking on your goal? What do you need to shift as have the priorities changed and you want to grow elsewhere? So having that part of the mid-year conversation. The kicker here is end of year, your performance review will not launch unless you have a goal in.
Oh, wow.
And it is part of the review. So this is our second cycle doing that. We have people that they enter their goals. Our learning and development team do a great job with new hires and reminding them that's part of their onboarding task to get their professional development goal in, talking to your manager about that. So it is, it's worked really well. And I think that, when we think about our employees and is my company investing in me? Do they care about my development? Yes, absolutely we do. It's a part of our other programming.
Yeah. And I don't know if anyone's here on the call from Adobe, but I went out there and interviewed them a couple of years ago, and they said, like, let's get back to basics. We had all these leadership programs, all these things. Let's get back to basics. And what their basics was, okay, let's teach everyone goal setting. And let's start there. Here's the goal, here's the expectation. And then right before performance reviews, let's talk about feedback and, performance and how to evaluate that progress. And they really boiled it down to the goal setting tied to the performance conversations, the development conversations, let's call them, right? That was the key to everything else. That was where they really started. That's really neat.
When you want to shift over for you, Wendi, with your goals, were these goals just open and they could be anything, or did they have to be kind of aligned to a competency or a leading behavior that drives a competency, or was it just open?
So we start small with with less restrictions to get people used to thinking about development. And so we've given a lot of freedom to our employees and their managers on the development goal. Um, However, we just finished our end of year performance launch next week, and so those learning sessions that you were just mentioning, Kevin, we just finished those this week, and talking about SMART goals and goal setting. We do tell our managers, like, if there are areas of focus, you can guide your employees towards being more focused on those competency areas that they need to upskill in. So, but we do give them a lot of freedom and autonomy there to have their professional development goals, and there's some ownership there, I think, when you do it that way.
Wendi, there's actually some interesting, questions and comments coming through the chat. And as I was reading those, you might have even addressed this, and I might have missed it. But first of all, just what platform are you using for the goals and the reviews? What tech platform?
We use UKG.
UKG.
Mm-hmm.
And are you differentiating? Do people have to put in performance goals or developmental goals? Like how much?
So right now, we just require professional development goals.
Mm-hmm.
As a next step, it will be professional goals. So I call it the slither in effect here, starting to build muscles and habits on how you do that. And we made it about them first. And then you start to build on that. And so 25 will be the focus around the performance-based goals that are tied to our OKRs. And so we'll start to build that muscle more in 25.
I love it. I love it. Billy McMillan is talking about, and this surprised me, Billy. So managers required to have 2 one-on-one documented discussions with their teammate each month. 2 documented one-on-ones each month. And then that first bullet, what's my role and how is it connected to our mission? So the number one driver of employee engagement, according to LeadX research, Connects research, is future vision. Do we know where the future's looking like? Is it bright? And how am I aligned to that? And to actually make that part of the discussions, I think is really cool. And just goal setting by its nature is future visioning. It's one form of future vision. It's really cool stuff. Wendi, let me move on for the sake of time to talk about emerging leader programs, which is the number one topic of 2024. We've gotten more requests at LeadX to help with ELP journeys than any other type of journey or platform. They're really taking off. And again, I think Evan can drop, let me go back to the bottom, links to these articles and things as well for the details. But let's start here. So you're saying you've got 1,600 global employees. Mm-hmm. You're emerging leaders. How many people are in the program? How many times do you run the program a year?
Yeah, so we in 24 we had 2 programs completed, and we had about around 30 participants in that program. So and I think whenever I talked to Evan, we were completing a third, and then we just launched a women's emerging leader program. Oh, cool. I know, I'm so excited about that program. So and we and Kevin, I have to kind of give you credit for this. We did have a nomination process before when we initially did our early programming, and you had some thoughts around, like, why not make it an application program? And that's what we did. And it has been phenomenal because we know that the people that apply for the program, they really want to be there. And so we have a high level of accountability in our emerging leaders programs because we invest so much into them. And so we have kickoff calls with our participants, our nominees, as well as their managers. We outline everything that's required and give them an opt-out at the end. Like, if you can't do this, it's totally fine. And we have a waiting list of people that, could plug in for that. But we've had so much interest in it that I'm sure Adrienne and her team would love to do more than we can do. But you run L&D teams are usually ran pretty lean these days.
Yeah, and I'm in my mind, I'm underlying, like, meeting with the manager, right? Back to the role of the manager. The number one variable to make people show up and stick with it is if their manager wants them to do it, if their manager is supportive of the work, and giving them a no shame opt out. Look, this isn't for anyone, or maybe it's a bad time, whether stuff's at work or at home, like that's okay too. But let me back up, Wendi. And Wendi, it's okay if you and I agree to disagree on some things. Okay. So
yeah.
I actually think that the real value of emerging leader programs, it's a retention tool to my mind. It's like, hey, who are the hot shots, the high performers out there that we don't want to lose. We don't want them to become part of our 10, 20%, whatever, turnover. So we want them to feel like, hey, we see you, we know you've got a bright future, and we are investing. We're helping you to grow and develop. I think it's really sort of a nice way to make sure they stay with you another year or two. A lot of other people are saying it's really about developing their skills. We want to get them ready to be managers. We want to move into that manager role. Of course, it doesn't have to be one or the other, but what was the primary motivation for launching your ELP program?
We wanted to prepare the next level of leaders for the organization, and we didn't want someone to be put into a people management role and have them have to wait 12 years to get investment in them. And so we wanted, and it's a retention tool. I mean, we have 94% retention rate with our participants. So we definitely want to retain them. And when I say, we have applicants, we do have criteria set up for applicants. We have, when you have 30 slots and you have 200 applicants, there is like you start to narrow down the list, and it is your top performers that you want to bring through these programs. So but we, and I've talked, there's a little bit in the article about what we do with people that aren't selected, but it is a retention tool. I believe that. And we do have criteria around top performers that are participants in the program.
All right, so you just hit again on so much good stuff. I'm going to remind everyone you can put your questions in the chat, and I'll get to them in just a second. But so Wendi, this is great. So I hate to ask our group here of however many folks we have, 90 folks, to do a little math. But so I like to look at the numbers. So you said you've got about 200 managers ish, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you care to say what your turnover among managers are, either from leaving the company or promoted. It's 15%.
Oh my gosh, managers. I don't know off the top of my head today.
Let's even say, let's go high. So maybe you're losing 40 managers, frontline managers, 30 managers, something like that a year. That's how many people should be graduating through your ELP program, right? So if you are doing 2 or 3 cohorts, then you're going to have enough. And boy, your recruiters love you, because now instead of just having to start from scratch outside, you've got this pool ready to go. Am I thinking about that right?
Yes, I think so. We do. And definitely, I have not looked at our manager turnover rates. It's not that high though. But we do have a pool of people ready for promotion whenever, not just when someone leaves though, because if you think about change, you also think about change in the tech industry and the evolution of change. And, as we grow and consolidate and, having people internally to step into those roles, it is important.
Now, I don't want to go deep on this with you, Wendi, but I'll throw it to the chat, because then the other problem you're going to have, or all of us have, is let's say you're graduating 30 people a year or 40 people a year, but you only have 10 spots open up a year. So if your turnover is low, then all of a sudden your high potential graduates is kind of stacking up, waiting for their opportunity, which can cause a misalignment of expectations. Let's put it that way. I don't know if anybody in the chat has ever faced that, or what you do with graduates to keep them warm. I see Rennie's got sharing his concern there with it. But it sounds like your numbers are right on, Wendi, at least so far.
Yeah, and I think it's when you think about career growth, it is not just about a promotion. It could be tapped for a special project, cross-functional project.
Love that.
It could be, a lot of things. We talk about career growth, and when we have our career growth sessions, it has nothing to do with a promotion. You can grow to be a mentor. You can grow even your following on LinkedIn, or, I set an intentional goal in 22 to be on one podcast. I've done my fifth 5 so far.
You've done 3 this week, Wendy. You're a little bit of a high achiever.
But I'm just thinking like career growth means something different to people. And we've tried to set intentionality based on just that reason there that we may not have enough promotional opportunities, but it can look different. And that is career growth. And so when we look at it from that lens, people are getting opportunities.
That's great. Now, I do want to give you a chance to talk a little bit about the content in the program. So we get that question a lot. ELP program. Who should be part of it? How long should it be? What should we be teaching? Now, again, the LeadX perspective, which, just because it's true doesn't mean everyone has to agree, is that we actually suggest not doing manager of people topics, because hopefully you have a new manager training program in place. And if I'm being taught how to do, grow coaching or something for direct reports, and I have no one to play with, no one to practice on, am I going to remember it? Is it going to work? Talk about some of the topics that's in your ELP program.
Leading self. It's about emotional intelligence, and we use the predictive index assessment to explore kind of their interaction and communication styles.
Self-awareness is so key. I love it.
Yes. We also do foundational leadership topics like practical business skills, business acumen, organizational acumen. So we feel like you need to have these foundational skills in order to understand what's happening in the business. That's another area of focus. Critical conversations. You need that skill, whether you're a people manager or not. Conflict and influence. So thinking about how do you navigate conflict in the business, and how do you influence without being a people leader, without having that title behind your name. So those are some of the topics that we cover in our EL program.
Yeah, I love those because, like I said, they're making you better in current role and next role. Like they're applicable right away. So my last question, then we can take chat, and then Evan, we'll make sure we do a quick breakout so people can huddle up. Peer coaching. This is often a hot topic from these programs. Like, how do we get participants to do social learning, peer coaching, depending on what you want to call it? And you did have an element of that. Tell me about that.
It is the #1 rated part of both of our emerging leaders program and our developing people leaders program.
#1 rated.
They love it. They love going, we put them in breakout rooms and they talk amongst each other about what they had learned, how they applied it in their current roles, and in the current flow of business. They love it. The group, and we bring people together across the enterprise. We don't do it in each business unit. So people get exposure to other parts of the business that may not in their day-to-day work. And they love it. They really do.
Wendy, tell me, so let's say there's ballpark 25 people in a cohort. Am I paired with Wendy, or is it like a triads or some other format? Are we talking via Zoom? How are we doing it?
Yeah, we're on Teams. And so everything we do from a learning perspective is virtual now. That's how we do that. And so people are put in breakout rooms. It's random on the breakout rooms when they get put into that, because we want people to build relationships amongst those 30 people. And the topics are structured. So they're given a topic and then they talk amongst each other. So that's the format that we've used.
Love it. Love it. Any, if someone's going to launch that kind of program alongside their existing thing, any tips just to make sure people embrace it and get the most from it?
Well, I think, the peer piece for us, I think, was kind of selfish when we first started it, because we were a company that had acquired 3 business units very, very quickly and had not done integration very well. And so selfishly, we wanted to start building those collaborative relationships across the business units. But I think you need to make sure that people in the same department, in the same business unit, don't get put in the rooms, or if you don't have more than 2 of those, and if you have 5 people in your group. But you also explain, you have to talk to people about making space for each other to have a voice. And you typically, every time we go into the breakout rooms, even in this format, someone rises to the top as just a natural leader. And
Oh,
so we talk about everybody having an opportunity to speak and like being creating enough psychological safety in those sessions to say, hey, Wendi, we haven't heard from you today. What are you thinking?
yeah.
And so that is something that's super important in those peer review sessions. You can't have one person dominating the conversation.
Yeah, love that tip. All right. So, Wendi, thank you for all that. What we are going to do is give people a chance to chat about what they took away from this discussion. And for those of you who are new, this is really about building your social network. Dig your well before you're thirsty. Make some friends, get some people who are going to have your back. And you can talk about anything you want. We're just giving you some conversation starters. Thoughts about the emerging leader topics and program design. Does your company have a culture of continuous learning? Would you say so? Why or why not? And we're going to call you back in about 12-ish minutes. How was your breakout, Wendi? Was it weird? Like they're talking about you or something, right there, right in front of you?
No, they were asking me a bunch of questions. So it was awesome.
That's good. Hey, Wendi, speaking of questions, there was a question in the chat. I didn't see it till we were already broken out.
Okay.
Asking you about that dreaded knowing doing gap, which everybody knows. I hate the dreaded knowing doing gap, and I have my preferred way of dealing with it. But how did you deal with learning transfer of those skills in your ELP program? We get a lot of questions about the learning doing gaps. How do you know they're applying it? What do you do to help them to apply it back on the job?
Oh my gosh, just Adrian, who is our senior manager of L&D, we're just talking about application this
Mm,
morning. And it shows up in their performance reviews, specifically around those competencies that link to our emerging leader topics. It shows up there. Also, we do nudges to them in terms of here's how you can apply some of the skills that you're learning. I think there's an accountability factor with the peer sessions as well, because
mhm.
people are expected to contribute in those conversations about how they've applied what they've learned.
Yeah.
So those are some of the ways that we do that. We need to get better at that piece. And so any people like ideas, advice, I'm totally open to that.
Yeah, and again, I've been delighted with how many ideas have been flooding the chat, which we will summarize and get out there for next month. So, in addition to personalized nudges and digital coaching, any other ideas for overcoming that knowing doing gap? Please add those. That's great. And Wendi, don't go far, don't stray far, because Dwayne and I, we're talking, and again, this is new to Dwayne also, the top 5 plays of the day or interesting stories of the month. Completely arbitrary, things that caught my eye. But here's number 5. So I know a lot of you people follow the work of the talent strategy group, especially the CPOs, CHROs out there. And Mark had a really good article, Above the Fray, What We Know About How Work from Home and Hybrid Affect Work. And of course, this is a multi-year long conversation. This article, and there's links in the source, but you could just Google this as well. So this article summarized a whole bunch of research about work from home productivity. And there's a bunch of studies that say we're more productive at home, and there's a bunch of studies that say we're less productive at home. And it's why so many of the tech companies are calling people back into the office, because they are pretty easily, more easily able to track productivity, and it hasn't been good. What jumped out to me from this is this conclusion that work from home may be about performance, but work from office is about potential. And so, Wendi, exactly like we started, talking at this segment, that socializing, meeting new people, visibility, mentoring in the hallway after the meeting, those things are really, you can't measure it the way you would measure normal productivity, right?
I mean, we do a lot of bias training in our performance review cycles and our promotion cycles. And we do talk about bias around recency bias, whether
Mm,
that be someone's performance in the last 3 months or just because you saw them in person at a meeting. And we do talk about those things. I've worked remotely for so many years, and I've not experienced any kind of not growing or because of that. And so and our organization is small, that we we can see just because of our calibration efforts, how we review our promotions and people that are selected for projects. Our business partners are really close to the performance in each one of our business units. So we don't experience a lot of that. And I don't think that there is one answer that will cover this, but when I think about work from home, it is about trust and clear expectations.
Yeah. Yeah.
And good people managers.
Yeah. Trust is it makes everything else go well. We'll go quickly on these. Number 4, Gallup again, and this should just be a reminder for us. Well-recognized employees were 45% less likely to have changed organizations within 2 years. Recognition is a top 10, top 7 driver of employee engagement. Korn Ferry, interesting piece, a world with no managers. They're talking about how most of the massive layoffs are happening in that middle level. Hey, Dwayne Bess, what do you think is a good number for span of control? A good manager, how many direct reports should they have?
I'd say sweet spot is going to be anywhere between, I'd say 6 and 12.
6 and 12. Intel's Andy Grove used to say 6 because that's how many 30-minute one-on-ones you could stack on a Monday. Sales managers are used to having bigger teams, right?
Exactly. Anytime you go if you go below 6, sometimes you're annoying and you fixate too much. When you go over 12, once again, you can't be as intentional, you can't be as customized. So depending on the role, of course, between, I think 6 to 12, I'd say.
Love it. Number 2, this is a personal thing. Emotion AI, a hot new field, teaching robots to recognize emotions in humans and teaching robots how to express emotions that are believable to humans. That's work I want to be doing. All right, I'm going to jump into it because we got 1 minute. Many of you will remember we created AI version of Kevin Kruse and recorded some videos on LinkedIn. And most of you said you couldn't even tell the difference. Well, now, HeyGen, the same company, you can create your avatar and send it to a Zoom meeting and people can talk to you. You can give it your emails, your articles, you can train it what you think, and it will talk to you.
God.
So if you go to HeyGen and click on their interactive avatar, you can experience it with, have a difficult conversation with Vicky, I was learning Arabic with Angelina. I was getting coaching from Sophia. Now, it's not 100%, but this is mind-blowing. You could do it through Zoom in real time. If we can do this today, can you imagine what we can do a year from now or 5 years from now? On that note, we are at the hour. I love the interactivity today. I want to see everyone next month. The Dwayne Bess. Well, hold that, Dwayne. Wendi, thank you so much. Blessings for coming on and sharing. Dwayne, send us out with some encouraging words.
Well, first and foremost, next month's meeting, I'm sending my avatar. That's that. But no, but in all seriousness, though, I think this message for me in November, sometimes you have to remove to reveal. Sometimes you have to remove to reveal. We have so much on our plates. Knowing what to say no to, that can really open things up to be in the positions where we really need to be. So what do you have to remove so your purpose and where you need to be in that path can be revealed to you? That's my quest for November.
Remove to reveal. I love it. Wendi, thanks again. Evan, appreciate all the magic behind the scenes. See everyone soon.